Hey, I'm MXBell, and as many of you know, I'm making a feature film in Unreal Engine and broadcasting my progress on this channel as I go. And today I'm going to show you the previs for the opening shot of the film. The film is Spacewalker. Stick around after, and I'm going to talk you through in Unreal Engine how I made it. My name's MXBell and I work on all these things, and I'm here to teach you how to make films in Unreal Engine. Welcome to Realtime Workflows. Okay, so let's get into the shot. The music there, by the way, is by Mike, my composer. He's composing the music as I compose the visuals. The conceit of the shot was always that it would start on a starfield, which is static, except for the camera roll. And then we would start to see particulate moving through space. That's the ammonia, which is going to be a big plot point. And then the idea was it would take a journey across the space station showing some of the language of the structure. So the idea was always to show handrails and to show things like that. And so let's just get into it. Here's my scene with the shot. So we can see I've got it arranged. I've had a little bit of a tidy up to do the video, but not much, like a couple of folders here and whatnot. So let's come to the start, and if I choose the camera, we see the camera's path. So this is just a keyframe animated camera. By the way, this light thing coming on, this is real. This actually happens. This is how it works, and I've got this set up for real. We can come over here and we can see this is happening because the sun is down and it comes up and over the planet, and as it does that, and that's the speed at which it comes over as well, and as it crests the side of the planet, that's when we start to get the light, and this is the shadow of Earth going away, which is pretty cool. And one of my first ideas for the shot is actually that we would chase this, that we would kind of like be following it as it creeps down. But I couldn't get it to work because it moves quite fast. I've actually kind of slowed it down a little bit. I'll get into this time warp here. I slowed it down a tiny touch just for the sake of this shot, but not much. The shot starts on black. Again, this is done in engine. I'm doing everything in engine. Now, maybe when we get to the final, I won't do this in engine, but for now, this is a single plane to which I've put a black material with an opacity that fades off on it. We can see there, and it's dithered. That's why it looks like that. And we can see it fades off till it's gone, and that reveals the starfield. So that's how I'm doing that. This ammonia plane is this thing that we see here. Now, I don't want to call too much attention to it at the start, so it's just as the light comes on, the idea is that it catches that these particulates will just glisten like glitter, almost like floating glitter, if you like. That's how I'm picturing it, floating glitter. And this image, it's just an image. This is a Niagara effect, and it's just individual particles that just float off. You can see them leaking out there. The idea is that in the final one, we will sort of see that this is turning and these things all come out at different speeds, as we can see. And the idea is that it's formed this kind of ring around this space station. The science of this is questionable, but I like the effect too much to not do it. So you know, that's what it looks like. And in actual fact, it's moved there for this shot. It should actually be kind of around here. So then the camera, so the camera comes all the way down here and it's rotating as we go, right? So we can see here, if I put this on, we can see the rotation, the roll. So I wanted it to roll the whole way through. So it just keeps rolling, it keeps rolling. It gives us a really unique view of the station, I find, and sort of we don't even I'm quite familiar with the geography of the station by now, and even I kind of get lost in it, which is kind of the point. It's meant to be, because we're constantly rolling, they're never quite sure where the up or down is, and in fact, if we come to here, we can see it's come through. The lights come down, and then so we're rolling, and now by the time we get here, this is Earth, so we've rolled the whole way around. We've rolled 180 degrees, and we keep rolling. And then we come across the Canadarm. The Canadarm's going to form a big part of the story, and I really wanted to just kind of like come past it and make sure we can see that it says Canada, it's the Canadarm. It's also a good reason to be rolled, so Canada is the right way up. And we continue rolling. We get some great parallax here as we see that just how quite big I know it's not very big, the space station, but we can see we get levels and levels of parallax up through there. A lot of this was an accident. I just put a couple of keyframes in and just tried to see what I could find. And then ultimately we get to here, which is where this is the Quest International Airlock, and that is where we will cut to. When we cut out of this shot, we will cut inside there to meet our astronaut hero. And I like just kind of slowing down here and to the point where we can see the light creeping over. You see the light growing. And what's really cool is, like, we just come out of here, like, come and look at the Quest Airlock here earlier. So the camera's over there, it's still working its way down, but I mean, this is cool. This is real time, basically, and you know, we can see the shadows as they creep down over everything. It's just such a cool place to set a film, you know. So yeah, I've got one light there as well. Let me just show you the light. I'm trying to do as little additional lighting as possible. You know, like in space, largely there's one light source, which is nice for making films because obviously I won't have to worry about one light source. But I will obviously be using additional light sources just when I need to embellish things, and this is one such instance. I did a rect light here just to make it so we could actually see the Quest Airlock because it's completely in shadow by now. And I'll be doing quite a bit of that as I go through the film. Let me just talk quickly about this time warp. So this subsequence is my 90-minute orbit. So if I click into here, this is a 90-minute timeline. I've talked about it on other videos. It's a 90-minute timeline. It behaves exactly as it would. We come open up onto in a night pass, coming into a day pass, which is when the sun comes up. Let's do it over here. It's where the sun comes up, and then it keeps going through the day, and then at night time, then up comes the moon, and we keep going. And so the film's going to be in real time, and so this entire process will continue, and then ultimately at the end we get to a day pass. Now, that's completely fine, but for this shot, the lighting obviously plays a major role, because not only do we get it on here, I know we'll talk about the music in a second, but it's timed to the music. So there has to be a certain level of like control. And so what I did was I've been in here and I actually extended using the sequencer from Subsequences. So this is my time warp. So that's the entire 90 minutes. And I just played with it in here for this sequence, for this opening shot. So the time warp barely moves here, and that's just because I extended it so that I could get this camera move in. And then when the time warp actually starts, that's fine. I'm just adjusting it very slightly for this shot. There's two things I want to get. I want to get that in, and because I'm setting these keys, I can kind of control where it happens. And I also wanted to get, when we get to here, to the end, I wanted to have changed it sufficiently such that this light is growing. I just wanted to be able to see that. Now, once we're outside the shot, the time will be returned to normal and it'll be running in perfectly real time. It's a very slight deviation from real time here, just in terms of the lighting, just to change that. And then to talk about the music for a minute, I'm using it live in Unreal Engine. I don't see no reason not to. The render that you just watched is a render directly out of Unreal, so it's not like I've added the music afterwards. You know, I'm rendering as a previs MP4 with the audio, and that's exactly what you've just watched. And I found it useful in here, obviously, because I can see the waveform. I know that this is the kind of sort of big crash, the big musical crash that Mike put in, which is where I wanted to have my light to come down. And that will be continuing. And what we're doing, I've mentioned this on another video as well, is we're actually using stems and loops of his music. So that's an entire demo, that one, but we'll be using stems of it like sections, loopable sections, so that I can kind of construct the backbones of the track using building blocks that he gives me. And then once we've got that, as I'm moving around with my edit, once we've got that, he can then take that away and polish. So it's very much an interactive and collaborative process, and it's largely because, I mean, one, we used to be in a band together, and we've got a shorthand and we're good friends. But it's not just that; it's there's not much sound design in this because there's no sound in space. So really, the sound design is outside of the few minutes of the film where he's inside the airlock and there is some atmosphere. There is no sound other than the words that he speaks into the microphone. That's literally all we hear, is voices, and the voices that he hears through his headset. That's all we can hear. And so the music is a huge part of it. And I want to make sure that we've paid enough attention to that. And because of that, I knew that I would want to have music all the way through, like while I'm all the way through the process, like while I'm making it. Like, this would not be as good if it didn't have some music. The visuals for me always come together with music, and so it just makes more sense to have him be involved right from the start, because the music's going to be so prominent, because it's the only sound design we get to do. So that's my opening shot, that's previs, and that is my Spacewalker production diary for this week. If you want to know more, you can like, subscribe, and all that stuff. You can join the mailing list. And yeah, follow me on this journey, and we will continue to build a movie and a community, hopefully. So yeah, see you down the road.